All right. Good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us all here today. Today's shir should be Le'ilun Nishmas, our dear friend Menachem ben Yisrael Yaakov, as well as my dear aunt Rivka Bas Gavriel Tzvi, and for Zaidi, Reb Shmuel ben Yosef Dov HaKohen, and B'schos L'Refuah Shalem B'Karov, Mishalom ben Tzar Rachel, and Miriam Bas Sarah. Today, we are on page 402 in the Ora Vigdor. For those who are following along, yes, we cracked the 400. And to be honest, you only have a couple pages left. We actually are not on the home stretch. We are past the home stretch, almost at the very end of it, of Sha'ar Bitachon, before we get this started all over again. This last chapter that we're talking about over here, what we're going to finish off talking about is levels of Bitachon. Now, this goes into the obstacles of Bitachon that we spoke about. But I want you to understand that Chovos HaLevavos is not going to finish Sha'ar HaBitachon on this high note, this inspiration, this mic drop of a moment. It's not at all what he's going to do there. One of the things we spoke about in the obstacles, we spoke about this concept that people have this idea that perhaps they have Bitachon just because they give lip service to it, because they say they do. Because I was told to say that, yes, I have Bitachon in Hashem. And yesterday we spoke, as Rabbi Victor Miller illuminated to Chovos HaLevavos, we said that most people assume that Bitachon on Hashem is just something you have it or you don't have it, right? You believe or you just struggle with it. You either trust in Hashem or you just panic every single time something happens. But Sha'ar Bitachon over here in the final few pages of Sha'ar Bitachon teaches us something else. Rabbeinu Chai explains that Bitachon for itself exists in levels. As a matter of fact, there are 10 levels of Bitachon, and every single one of us is on a different level, based on our own experiences, based on our own abilities, based on our own, what we've learned, how much work we put into it. And two people, you'll never find two people that say, oh, I trusted in Hashem, yet they're living completely two different lifestyles. You know, you're going to have two people that say they trust in Hashem, but they're very, very different. One person might remain calm when something happens, and one person is going to fall apart when they come across a challenge. You know, one person emotionally, they might say, yes, I'm a big Baal Bitachon, they might emotionally feel that, but when the challenge comes up, they just lose it. And really, in reality, they're contradicting themselves. Now, Chovos is explained, like we just said by Rabbi Victor Miller, teaches that Emunah Pshuta, this is what we spoke about yesterday, Emunah Pshuta is not something you should aspire to. There are a lot of people out there that claim, yes, you should just have Emunah Pshuta. But the reality is that Emunah Pshuta is not sustainable, according to Rabbi Victor Miller. Why? Because you want a foundation, you want to really understand the structure, the inner workings of how Hashem runs this world, so that you could have a better understanding in your Bitachon, so you could grow and you could be a stronger Baal Bitachon. And you can get to that 10th level. The 10 levels, the 10 different degrees of Bitachon, these are 10 ways that a human being can actually relate to Hashem. And those 10 levels, what that does is it forces you to be kind of honest with yourself. Because by the fact that you have 10 levels, now what you could do is you can actually categorize yourself. It's not like, oh, I'm a Baal Bitachon or I'm not a Baal Bitachon. It's no, what level of Bitachon am I on? Self-gauging, not to go and publicize, not to go and tell your friends, boast about it, or to be embarrassed by it. It's for yourself. For your own personal abilities and your personal growth, what level you're on and what levels you have to aspire to. Because the biggest mistake that you could make is just say, oh, I have Bitachon, but in reality you don't have. But when you break it down to the 10 levels of Bitachon, what you wind up doing is you give yourself a chance, a milestone. There's this concept about milestones versus goals. Someone might have a goal. A goal is to reach a certain number, for instance, right? So say you want to run a marathon, right? 26.2 miles, or I think that is, right? So 26 miles, and you say, that's my goal. What happens is you go and you start training for that marathon. You don't make it in your training, you're just not getting to that 26. You're not getting to that 26. Psychologically, what you're supposed to do is set milestones. Those milestones are really like, you first get to the 5K mark, right? 2.5 miles. First get to the 10K, to the 20K. And if you put those milestones and you say, wow, I accomplished, and then now you have something to aspire to the next level and the next level, it makes it a lot easier for you to not be full of yourself, to not lie to yourself, and so that you can grow as a Baal Bitachon. So maybe today you're on level 3, but you have what to look forward to at level 4, because level 10 is out of reach right now for you, maybe. Right? It's too far. And then you'll be like, oh, forget it. I'm not. No. You might not be fully on level 10, but you're on level 3. You're on level 4. You're growing. And then 2 months from now, 6 months from now, you're on level 5. And that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be about growth. And that goes very, very well with this week's Parsha. In this week's Parsha, we see Aaron HaKohen's name is actually, let me back up. Any time that we see in the Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron HaKohen are spoke about in the same context, in the same conversation, you see Moshe Rabbeinu's name is put first, and then Aaron HaKohen's name is put there. This week's Parsha, we see the opposite. We see the opposite, that Aaron HaKohen's name is put first, and then Moshe Rabbeinu. So this big Rashi asks, what's the reason for all this? And it says that Moshe and Aaron were on the same level, really. But were they really on the same level? Because the Torah mentions many times how Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest of all time. Moshe Rabbeinu was the only one who actually saw Hashem face to face. Moshe Rabbeinu is the only one who went up onto Sinai, brought down the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu was the leader of Klal Yisrael. So how are you telling me that Moshe and Aaron are on the same level? They're clearly not the same level. Important lesson. The important lesson over here is that Hashem gave each and one of us different abilities, different gifts, different capabilities. For instance, someone who's 5'4" most likely will never be a basketball player. Because basketball players are generally like 6'6", 7 feet, right? So it's very, very different. Hashem gave those individuals the gift of height so that they can play ball. Hashem gave you a different gift. Maybe it is a sharp mind. You can be a lawyer, or really good with, in the medical, whatever that is. Hashem gave you a gift. Every single person has to have aspirations as to their own capabilities based on the abilities that Hashem gave us. So if we reach 100% on the abilities that Hashem gave us, then we are just as equal as Moshe Rabbeinu, who reached the 100% abilities that Hashem gave him. Every one of us can be just like Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, if you think you can't, think about it. If Hashem only gave you capabilities, whatever that is, and you work at 100%, so did Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, you can't be in the exact same position as Moshe Rabbeinu, because Hashem gave him a job to be the leader of Klal Yisrael. He didn't give it to you. But that doesn't mean that you can't be on the same level, just because he has a different job description. And that's why Aaron HaKohen's name comes before. It's to teach us this important lesson, that each one of us, all we got to do is put our mind to it, is push ourselves just a little bit, and we could be as great as Moshe Rabbeinu. But all we got to do is utilize our own 100%. Don't look at somebody else. Don't say, oh, I wish that I'm like that person, or say, oh, well, that person could do it, that I can't do it. There's nothing to do with anyone else. It has just to do with you and you yourself only. Thank you, everyone, for joining us all here today. Have a wonderful, a beautiful Shabbos, and as always, I love each and every one of you.